So I've got a stopwatch on my phone counting down 45 minutes to make sure I keep the time because Chris has threatened me as well. Thank you very much for letting me speak to you this morning. I agree, there is a theme, and I'm really interested to... Nick, thank you for your presentation. What I'm going to cover today, don't worry, there's not going to be a demonstration of SharePoint. I'm not going to sit here and show you a bunch of Microsoft technologies. As Chris said, I'm Michael Wignall. I'm the National Technology Officer for Microsoft UK, and what that means is I'm responsible for our overall technology strategy in the public sector. So my role is to listen to customers big and small, from the biggest central government departments, DWP, HMRC, MOD, down to the smallest school, and map their requirements and their technology needs to what Microsoft's doing. And I spend a lot of time working with our corporate colleagues to make sure that we're delivering the right technology to you. So over the next 30, 35 minutes, and I'm going to keep time at the end for questions, so you'll be able to grill me around why your PC doesn't work the way you want it to work. I'm going to be taking some of the themes that Nick talked about. I'm going to tell you some stories, talk about what's happening today and what Microsoft's doing about it, what we see in the next 5 to 10 years, so our future vision of productivity, and then really where Microsoft's transforming, because we're going through a lot of change at the moment. It's interesting when I think about 5 to 10 years, give what I'm going to say with a little bit of a pinch of salt. For those who are movie fans, and you know the Back to the Future movies, Back to the Future 2 is set in 2015 when they go to the future. So now is the future where we should have hoverboards and flying cars and those kind of things. Now in the 80s they thought that was the future. I'm only going to go 5, 10 years out from now and kind of talk around how the world has changed and what the possibility is. But take what I say with a pinch of salt. So I think it's undoubtedly true, and this is a bit of a truism, that the world has changed. Everything that Nick talked about, everything that you're hearing, is we're in a very different time. And it's not just that it's changed, it's about the pace of change and the speed at which change is taking place. And I think this is really interesting for how you deliver technology services for your own staff and for your students. But it's also interesting around how we as consumers use technology. And so what I'm going to talk about is the mix between the digital life and the work life, and how we move from a mobile world, a cloud world, and a platform productivity world. I'm going to talk about some of these trends and talk to you about how we're addressing them. So I think it's a truism that the world has changed, and there's a couple of stats. I'm not going to steal too many of the next speaker's slides, but the number of devices that we talk about are exponentially growing. We've seen the shift from your traditional PC to your phone and tablet device, and the Internet of Things in the future is going to become more and more of a trend. So the number of devices out there is going to explode. Not just devices, though. The other thing that's really interesting is the amount of data that these devices produce is going to explode. And I don't quite know what a zettabyte is. I can't really realize it in my head, but they say by 2020 there's going to be 44 zettabytes of data. Now, how we manage that data and what we do with it is going to be really key. So there's going to be many, many, many different devices, a lot of data these devices are producing, and what's key from my perspective and from Microsoft's perspective is what's scarce in all of this abundance is human attention. Is the amount of time that we have to look at all these devices and to be able to consume the data and do something meaningful with it. And that's really, from a Microsoft perspective, what we're focusing on. So Satya Nadella is our new chief exec. He's the third chief exec we've had in the 40-odd year history of Microsoft. He's been in place now for just over a year, and he's really brought a different way of looking at the challenges that people face around this concept. It's not so much around the technology. It's around what people do with it. And it's around focusing on, if we've got this abundance of data, this abundance of devices, if human attention is scarce, how do we make the most of that human attention? How do we make the most of that time? Because time's the one thing that we can't make more of. So in that context, and I tell a little bit of story here. So if we've got infinite apps and infinite data, infinite devices, when we've got finite time, how do we help manage that? Or what tools can be provided to help support us in that way? So I've had a very busy week this week. I was joking over dinner last night at the conference, which was a fantastic dinner, and I really enjoyed the speech, though we did get a little bit of a ribbing because we were sat at the front. But I'm in the third capital city for my tour this week, which I'm based in the UK. I was in Cardiff on Monday, Tuesday, London on Wednesday, and then flew up here yesterday. So 3 capital cities in a week, and then I fly to Seattle tomorrow. So for my sins, I'm a bit of a busy person. It's not as glamorous as it sounds. And in that week, in this past week and next week, I'm going to have lots of information about work. I'm going to have information from my social life. I'm going to have information from my wife, who's going to be asking me all sorts of different things. She wants me to pick up some clothes for her in the US because the exchange rate's quite cheap at the moment. And my life is merged. I'm traveling a lot. I'm out on the road. And I have to, by that nature, blur the lines between my digital life and my work life. If I counted up the time I was technically working versus the time I'm technically at home, then I definitely don't get paid enough for the job I do. And so because of that, I need to make the time to take advantage of doing my social life and my work life at the same time. And from a Microsoft point of view, we see this blurring coming to the fore and therefore want to talk about how we can provide the best services for people to help live in that world, because the distinctions going to continue to blur in the future. So I want to kind of, for this audience, talk a little bit about the modern student, because it's these guys that understand this the most. I'm not quite as distinguished as Nick. I don't have the grey hair. So I kind of bridge the gap between these two communities, and I do accept there are mature students who might not sit in this world. But the modern student really works differently than perhaps we're used to working. So they're always mobile and always moving. They're always accessing information wherever. They don't necessarily go into a lecture theatre or a tutorial room and sit down and do all their work. If the weather's nice, they sit under a tree and access it on their tablet. They work on their phone. They're always mobile, always moving. The other thing about them is that they're very willing to collaborate and share. And actually, they do this open and often. So it's about bringing people together and working on projects. Again, it's not, data isn't just for them and they want to hold on to it. They want to get ideas from other people and share about it. And the reflection of that is that they've grown up on social networks. And so social, and the way that social has affected how we interact, technology enabling that has affected how they learn and how they grow. And these are the future people who will be in the workplace. These are the people who actually, for them, it's commonplace for them to blur the lines between work and play. And in the future, they're going to expect the same thing in the workplace. And this is what you must, I'm sure, find of people who come out of organizations into your workforce. So a few stats around this that is particularly relevant we're seeing at the moment. 60% of desks currently, and this was a survey that was done last year, are vacant. They're vacant. There's all this space around there of people actually not sitting in the desk. And the reason is, well, if you can work from anywhere, what's the point of a modern workplace? Why do you want a desk? But conversely, the relation to that is there's a 6 times increase in co-working spaces. Because what people have found is that people value the community of innovation that's provided by getting together. So on one hand, you've got people who want to get out of the office, they don't want to sit at a desk, that's the old way of working, I want to work anywhere, I want to work from home, I want flexible working. On the other hand, they find a lot of value about getting together, collaborating, talking about ideas, and producing the work that they're trying to do. And so we've got to manage those trade-offs. And from a Microsoft perspective, we see how we help support that in 3 core ways. And this is really how we support it today. I'll get a little bit to how we support it in the future in a moment. This is how we support it today. We talk about modern collaboration, personalized insights, and then people-centric security and privacy. And there's a lot of overlap themes with what Nick said, and so hopefully you'll see that we're not diverging too far from what the analysts are saying and what people should be doing. So modern collaboration is mobile. It's around people-centric, pulling people together and working in big environments. It's about being flexible, adaptable to start working at any time. And that's going to be key, and that we're going to see that in the future being supported by cloud technology, supported by mobile technologies. It's also going to provide personalized insight. And this is really where I'll major as we go on for the rest of the presentation about the point of there's been a finite amount of time. So with all this data in the world, with all these devices, we want to be able to deliver insights to the person that's relevant both in their personal life and in their work life, so they don't have to go and shift through all the information and find what they're looking for. So it needs to be personalized, and it needs to give you something that you don't already know. And so again, a case in point of that is on the way here, I got a message on my phone when I flew up yesterday that my plane was delayed by an hour. That was pretty frustrating. I was in the airport, but it meant I could get another beer before I got on the plane, before I had to go and queue up in the line. So it told me, it knew from my calendar where I was going to be, it knew what activities I was taking, and it provided me that information without me having to look at it. And actually, that's even a mix, because it was a personal, I could take advantage of that for a personal reason, but it was a work flight and a work activity. And so we're going to see more of that predictive analytics, providing data to people and actually supporting those environments. And then the final bit is around people-centric privacy and security. So you can't do the other two things if you're worried about who's got your data, who's using it, and who's going to get access to it. So we're very, very keen about making sure that people are clear. What's your personal data? What's your work data? Where's the divide between the two? What decisions you're making and how you can trust in the information. And the current technologies that we use today, and I'm really going to try, and if anyone's taking notes, because I know there's competitions in these kinds of events on how many products the Microsoft guy can mention as he goes through the presentation. I'm going to try not to mention any other than the joke I made at the start. But our principles are trying to build on each of these things. So this is what we do today. We're reflecting on the fact that all these trends that Nick talked about exist, and we're trying to make sure that we deliver the best technology to support that today. But what about the future? What about 5 to 10 years out? And like I said at the start, from our perspective, I want to talk about human activity in the future. So not so much around the technology, but around what people want to do. And we see the trends that Nick talked about before continuing. So human activity will be nimble, will be highly mobile. It's about conversation-driven experiences, bringing people together, working on projects, moving away, developing shared intent, responsiveness, and all the technology that underlies that supporting this human activity. It's about making the most of your time. So what I'm going to show, a little bit lazy of me, is a quick video that we put together that talks about two people. There's two actors in it. And the video shows our future productivity vision. So it shows Kat, who's the main protagonist. You'll see her at the start. She's scuba diving. You'll see her through a number of sessions. She lives in Asia. She's an independent biologist. She's freelance. She's looking for work. She works on lots of different projects. So she's one of our characters. The other character is Lola. She's a more traditional executive. She works in Europe. She works in an office. She's looking for people to work on a project. She works in biotech. So you'll see these two people, and you'll see a story about how they interact and the types of technology that they can enable. And the key thing to remember as I go through this, and you'll see it afterwards, this is 5 to 10 years out, but it's based upon prototypes and real-life technology that we have in the lab today. And so once you see the video, I'll talk about actually what's the future that may come to you, and then how it's applicable or relevant for what you're looking at. So enjoy the video. too far-fetched for people? There's no flying cars or hoverboards or anything like that? Hopefully you saw through that presentation, this is not that far out. That kind of work of Kat coming together, working in a different location, being able to interact and work in a way that's familiar to her, this is actually closer than we may think. And this is really where I want to take the next part of the presentation, to talk around actually some of the things that you saw in admittedly, which was quite a quick jumping around video, to around the trends leading from what Nick said, the way that we'll change the way we work. So there are a couple of things that I want to draw out. One, which we saw a number of times through the video, which around doing more together, and this is a theme I talked about at the start, where it's not just around technology enabling you to work in a mobile format, but actually collaborating together in the same way. So you saw the big predictive whiteboard, bringing together information securely, knowing what they're working on, being able to collaborate, lots of different ways, actually bringing video into a workspace, people working remotely and together in a seamless way. And I think we'll see more and more of that in the future with large displays and technology that allows seamless video being embedded in those displays. We also talk about being with you, and you saw that right at the start, about actually, so Kat was scuba diving, but the students in the classroom could see her view and could see real-time video of what she was seeing. And I think we'll see more of that in the future as well when it comes to instruction or people showing what need to do, that they could see through the other eyes. And also what you saw is there was real-time translation. So there was translation between a question that was being asked in the classroom back to Kat, and Kat back to the person in the classroom as well. And we'll see that technology is here today. We can do real-time translation, we can do voice to translation, and this stuff isn't necessarily science fiction. What we'll see is it being more embedded in our day-to-day lives. High empathy presence, again, this was shown a number of times in the session about it being like you're in place with another person. So the mobility and the global nature of the video, there was two examples, but one where Lola got home, and as she's walking past, her dad's got home for a run, and she can talk to him. He's got a knee implant, he's got sensors on it, Internet of Things, which I won't steal the following speakers' details around, but that kind of environment will more become the norm, that actually being in person with someone has value, but even if you're spread in different ways, you want to get that high empathy presence. I mean, you probably can see lots of applicability to this in the teaching environment. The contextual information services, I think, was key as well, and we saw that in a number of places in the video. And this is what I talked about before about if what is scarce in this abundance of devices and data is human attention, is time, then how can we provide information to someone to make it easier for what they're doing? So, for instance, when Kat got to the restaurant, she's just been scuba diving, drove to the restaurant, have a nice cup of tea. She could merge her work and digital life. She's got her bills being paid on the right, what's happening in her existing team's work coming to her. She can be focused, but at the same time she can order tea from the restaurant because it knows she's walked into the restaurant. It's prompting her for a menu as she sits down. Likewise, when she's at the workspace, because there's still a lot of requirement to sit down and focus, despite us flicking around and trying to multitask all the time, she can look at information and then call the author. It's prompting her to connect to people she's already got in her network. So it's around providing that contextual information, and then also giving you that smart personal assistant. And again, some of this technology is today in technologies of like voice personal assistants on your mobile phone. This is, again, an example where so she's out with her friends, she's having fun, the work request has come through, and it's alerted her that actually there's a job. She's got bills to pay, she can get paid to work on this project. It alerts her to that, and it also knows actually if she wants to accept it, she's got a brunch meeting the next morning. So she's got a social activity, and it's prompting her, does she want to move that? She makes a simple decision with gestures. Actually, yes, I'll move that decision. I'll move that brunch meeting because bills are paying more important to me right now. And so it'll reschedule the brunch meeting, and then it gives her directions to a co-working space where she can actually do the work she wants to do to prep for the meeting. She's got to think about it before she sits down and goes into the office. The working with real-time data, I think, is a key trend that we'll see more and more of in the future. So you saw when Lola was looking at the right candidates to bring onto the project, she had all the information from her internal systems, but also external open information and social information. So she could compare these two PhDs that had different expertise in the area of kelp, And she could look at the publication history, she could look at their social network and impact, and she can compare them to look at which one she wants to bring onto the project. Now, she did that real time. There wasn't a, well, I need to do a request for a bunch of data, I don't have to get that data and wait and pull it together, then I get a report and I can look at it. She could instantly pull all those feeds together and analyze it. Now, there's a lot, this one in particular, I think, faces some of the biggest challenges we have around data standards, around the bandwidth required to do a lot of this, that cloud technologies definitely support the processing and the machine learning behind this. The other thing I thought was really interesting in the video, and I've seen this more in my interactions with technology, is the mix between different types of natural interactions. So you saw in there was lots of touching and swiping and stuff that we see today. There was a lot of voice. So she was using voice and talking to activate things as well, and we'll see that more and more. There was also gestures, so not actually touching devices, but doing gestures, gaze connection, but also the traditional, I want to sit down and write and type. And what we'll more and more see is actually people will mix mode ways of interacting with technology to be able to deliver it in the best way for them. Sometimes sitting down at a desk writing is the best way for someone to get to put their thoughts down in a way that other people can communicate with. The other key thing from a technology perspective that supports all this is secure mobility. And again, Nick talked a little bit about this at the start, and that really at no point through that video, and I might be cynical to say this is probably one of the most idealized part of it. Some of the others are more grounded in reality. You didn't actually ever see Cat sign in. You didn't see a type a password in. You didn't see a, put a thumbprint. So some of this, I think, will take a longer time to come on, but the idea of secure mobility linked to biometrics, linked to something she's got on her. So when she went to the co-working space, she had the device. It knew she was going to be there. It already pre-authorized to get there. When she sat down at the desk, it uploaded her workspace, so it was secure in her environment. And then when they went back to the lab and they had the big whiteboard, it identified the 3 people that were working on that project and therefore created a secure space for them. And a lot of that was through facial recognition and the other biometric techniques. This, I think, will be one of the enablers for what you've just seen in the video, but actually this is probably one of the biggest challenges that we face, standardization of security and how people get access to information. And then this one's really cool. I mean, just as a techie, in particular, I think this one's one of the most interesting aspects of the video, and also, surprisingly, one of the closest to home that what we have now. So the holograms you saw right at the start where she's scuba diving down. She's not, she's underwater, but she's got a mask on, and with her she can see a dive path, she can see controls, she can do activities within her field of vision. And despite that this may seem like this is the far-out future stuff, this is here now. Next week when I'm in Seattle, I'm going to see what you'll see in a moment, so I'll introduce you to HoloLens.
Look around. Technology is all around us. We use it in every aspect of our lives. It enables us to do amazing things. But what if we could go further? What if we could go beyond the screen? Where your digital world is blended with your real world. Now we can. This is the world with holograms. What will they enable us to do? New ways to visualize our work.
I have an idea for the fuel tank.
New ways to share ideas with each other.
How are things going your end?
I just put the images in OneDrive.
Perfect.
More immersive ways to play. New ways to teach and learn.
So put the new trap in the place of the old one.
Now what?
And tighten here and here.
New ways to collaborate and explore the places we've never been.
Look at this formation. Let's take a closer look.
And new ways to create the things we imagine. Because when you change the way you see the world, you can change the world you see. This is Microsoft Hololens.
Now, we launched that in January, so a couple of months ago. I'm actually seeing that next week when I'm in Seattle. It's not going to hit, we haven't got a release date of when we're going to hit it in public market. But this stuff's closer than you may think, and you can see some of the examples of where this technology can be brought into the real world. So from a lower education perspective, the Minecraft example is the one that gets talked about quite a lot. So actually using the space that we're in and projecting holograms anywhere in your living room, so actually playing where you are. And the other one I think particularly relevant to this audience we've seen a lot is the actually new ways to teach and learn. So that example was she needs to fix the plumbing, and then she's got a Skype call coming in that's helping her and showing her in real time where she needs to connect things and what she needs to do together. And this stuff is much, much closer than you may think. You look at that video and think that's sci-fi. Well, actually, it is close, and I think these are the types of technologies that will actually make the human interaction, the human time, more productive and more valuable. So I'm bang on half an hour now. I'm going to make sure there's time at the end for questions. I want to talk a little bit around, so what does this mean for Microsoft? I've only got 3 slides here, I think, so bear with me here before I open up to questions. Obviously, there's lots of change. So as we start at the start, the world is changing, technology is changing, Microsoft needs to change as well. We were talking over dinner last night that when Bill Gates first created the company, his vision was to put a PC on every desktop in every home in the world. And he pretty much did that. He succeeded in that. But that was back in the late 90s, early part of the last decade. Where we are now, you've got to accept the reality that there's a myriad of platforms, a myriad of mobile devices. You have to understand that we are, and we as Microsoft understand, that it's not just going to be a Microsoft ecosystem, that you're Microsoft end-to-end. It's going to be Microsoft alongside Android, alongside Apple, alongside Google, alongside lots of different technologies. So we have been reimagining Microsoft in that context. In the light of the trends that we're seeing about what can be done today, and in light of where we see technology going in the future, we're looking at actually in this new mobile-first, cloud-first world, how do we reimagine ourselves or transform ourselves to best deliver the right experiences for our users. And so this is really where I come back to our new CEO, Satya Nadella, and this is something he pioneered when he came on board. So his passion is to enable people to thrive in this mobile-first, cloud-first world. So it's about people and what actions or outcomes people want to achieve. The technology is an enabler for that. It's not an end in of itself. And so the ramification of that, and what we've done off the back of it, is we've reimagined our core. So it used to be Microsoft was an Office and Windows company. Now we're very much focused around the productivity and platform company for the mobile-first, cloud-first world. And I'll talk a little bit about that. And we want to reinvent productivity to empower every person and every organization in the planet to do more and achieve more. So it's focused around human time, it's focused around the scarcity of people and be able to support the technology to do that rather than just technology for technology's sake. Now, what we mean by platform and productivity, so platform is, if you look at the part on the left, we focus in the core around the digital work-life experiences. So making sure the experience are best for people in both the enterprise world and the consumer world, because we fully expect those to merge, as you've seen in the previous videos. And then we want to support them in 2 ways. So in the platform world, the kind of bit on the outside, we have cloud operating systems. We have a whole bunch of technology in the cloud, and then we have operating system and devices that you use in your hand, and your phone, your tablet, and your PC. So this provides the platform on which you can deliver the services to your end users. And what's actually different about what we're considering in a platform, and actually both from a platform or a productivity point of view, is we're much, much more open about that platform. So a little known fact I'm going to mention one more product name here. In our Windows Azure cloud platform, about 22% of the workload, the cores that are running on our Azure platform, are Linux cores, are running Linux workloads. And for a Microsoft person to say actually 1/5 of our cloud is effectively running another operating system is a big change for Microsoft. So our platforms are designed to be open, to run Microsoft technology, but to be run other technologies as well, because we accept that that's going to be the changing face of technology. And the same applies for our productivity solutions. So whether it's using Office on your iPads or your Android device or your Windows device, we accept that people are going to be using it from different environments. We want to make it be able to interop between them. Microsoft Band, we were talking last night, I've got my Fitbit on and I'll have it on for about a month more. I didn't have it last night. But Microsoft's releasing the Microsoft Band, which is our wearable that syncs with your phone, comes out in the UK in the middle of next month. That platform will work with my Windows phone, but it'll also work with the iPhone or work with the Android. And it connects to our health cloud service, but it will also connect to a Fitbit service or another cloud service. So actually, it's a really good example of where it's a device, a Microsoft device, that works well with Microsoft technologies or other devices, and a Microsoft cloud service that actually works with our device, or actually you can use our cloud service to hook into Fitbit or other open platforms as well. So we very much flipped the company to focus around platform productivity in this new world and focus on digital life and work life. And you'll see more and more of that in the context of the vision of where things are going in the future coming out in our technologies. We want to be able to provide the best open platform and the best productivity solutions that people want to use them, that deliver the best digital work and digital life experience. So with that, thank you. I have 10 minutes. Chris, am I on time there? Left for questions. Thank you very much for your attention.
So yes, we have got a few minutes left for questions. The problem I have when I see videos like that is, as some of you will know if you've been following Twitter, I want that technology, but I want it now. Yeah. Don't tell me I can have it in 5 years' time. Sorry? How would I get it home? Oh, that is true. It's easy. And particularly what I want is not to be able to have to sign into anything. So anybody can crack that, I'll be your friend for life.
We're working on it, Chris. We're working on it.
Good. So we've got a couple of minutes for questions. And we've got some roving mics again. So if you do want to ask a question, please will you ask it into the microphone. Anybody got questions? One over there.
Thank you. Two things, just very quick. A lot of people talk about bring your own, which is the organisation talking to the individual. I was talking to some students recently. I said, forget that, I'm using my own, which was the individual talking to the organisation. And we came up with something called actually bring your own is really Obadici, which is only bring your device if I can control it, which was sort of the technical people said. I just wondered, it seemed to be I'm using. I don't need to bring it anymore. And the second thing is, it's probably a bit topical for Microsoft at the moment. The Gartner, our friend from Gartner this morning was talking about apps and is the browser dead? I used to say there are three things about technology in the future I'll predict. Mobile, personal, have a browser on it because so much is web-based. Is the browser dead? Is it the app that's the interface for the future? And should I forget talking about browsers? I know that's topical. I'm not asking you to talk about Explorer, but it's just a reflection on where we're going. So
thank you for the question. I'll address the latter one first, and then I'll come back to the first one. Is the browser dead? I think we'll see an evolution. So the browsers have been great for searching for anything. And you think the way search engines work, you put in something, you get some links, and it takes you to anything. It's been really, really good for that. Where the apps have been really good, and you've seen that in the space, if you do this competition where, you ask everyone to find something really quickly, what's the result of the... I am Australian, I have to mention it. What's the result of the World Cup cricket at the moment? Who's still in and who might not be in? If you ask that question to a group of people, look on your phones, the people who have an app, who have the World Cup cricket app, will find it quicker than those who go on a browser and search for World Cup scores and try to find it, because the app is doing a lot of work for you. It's bringing that information, presenting it to you. So you've got these kind of two extremes. The browser can provide everything, and the app is very tailored. The problem with app is app discovery, and if you don't have that app on the phone, then actually you're stuck in the old world. So I think we'll see a merging of that in the future. So we'll see in those environments, in my experience, actually I'm looking at my calendar, and my calendar will know that I'm going somewhere, and it will automatically go and look at whether, all of that kind of stuff. So I don't think one or two are dead. I think we'll still continue to see a merge of that. On the bring your own device, choose your own device, all of that, I think what we're seeing is the flexibility in the corporate world, depending on, when I talk to government customers on the level of sensitivity around data, does lock down a lot of that and does contain it. We try to provide the best security controls to make sure that actually if people do bring their own devices in, they can apply a level of security to it. But a lot of it actually is less of a technical issue and more of a policy and a cultural issue, as I'm sure you found. It's around people's attitudes to data, people's attitudes to their own data as well as work data. And that, I think, will be the biggest challenge to overcome. The technology will provide these ways to control it and ring-fence it and notify and alert people. But we need to make it easy and seamless for that so it helps get over the people and cultural issues.
Thank you. Anybody else got a question? It's a very difficult room, this, you know, to see everybody.
We've got one just in front here.
Hi, I wondered if you've done anything with in terms of the virtual reality headsets. My understanding is they cause quite a lot of nausea and things like that.
So yeah, I mean, there's been lots and lots of user testing around that, and it's one of those technologies that I think, because it's a new way of interacting with the world, there's a group of people to work with, and then there'll be people like who can't go into 3D cinemas today because that doesn't work in the way that they're looking at. One of the things that we've done and put a lot of R&D investment in the way we treat it is that there's a lot of technology in the different lenses. So the way it's projecting light, it's not projecting it into your eyes as such. You've got multiple lenses in front of you, and then it's projecting different layers of light onto those lenses. So when you're looking out and you're looking at holograms, they appear in the real world because that's the lens that you're looking through rather than beaming light into your eyes. So yes, we have done work in that area. There are still challenges. The people I've talked to have actually used it. I haven't used it yet. That'll be next week. Universally are wowed by the experience, but like anything, I think, as you saw in the video, it starts with that, and it's still a bit bulky. There's still some issues, but over time, with improvements in battery life and the like, I think we'll get around some of those issues.
Any other questions? If not,
there's one
what's on there?
It was interesting listening to you and the previous speaker. The one word that didn't come out about all these trends was reliability. Because in all the years that I've been in IT, my refrigerator is still more reliable than my PC.
Yeah.
And I just wonder what it is that you're doing to achieve that reliability, because for many of us or at least for my guys at the forefront who are delivering this technology, of course, things going wrong create more and more problems for us. And the wider range of technology you're providing, it seems to me, is an opportunity for more things to go wrong.
Yeah, it's a really good question. You're right. There is inherently more risk with more complexity, and the issues of reliability is really important. I think, I was having this conversation with some people last night over dinner, and they were asking me, and I was expecting to get this question from the audience, so what did you do wrong with Windows Vista, Michael? Come on, tell us about that. And I was reflecting a little bit around what I think we're doing right with Windows 10, which will kind of answer your question, in that what we've done with that is we released a preview for people to test a whole year before we plan to actually release the full product to market. And that touched on a little bit, Nick talked about around the change of thinking about IT in the old world and the new world, is that we are treating technology much more as an iterative process. If you're using our cloud productivity suite, we give you a open roadmap, you know where features are going to drop, and then you can choose, you get them, and you get them on a monthly or a 2-monthly basis. And you either choose to be at the front end of that, which means that you get them and they might be a little bit unreliable, but you want to take advantage of those, or towards the end once lots of other people have tested it for you. So we're really clear that we're changing the way we're delivering our services because they need to be more agile and more iterative. There's an inherent complexity in linking that together, but giving people access to it earlier and taking real-time feedback and building into that R&D effort should make our technologies more reliable across the board. I think definitely, again, a lot of this is not so much a technical issue, it's a cultural and policy issue around what's your level of risk about the reliability, what do you want to put in the cloud versus on-premise, how do you want to share that stuff around, and we want to make it as open and transparent so people can make the right decisions.